Chapter 191 Roundabout Tactic. Sylvia made a call to Andrew right after Caspian left. Andrew knew about Sylvia's identity, and had already saved her number in his contacts list after the meeting about the Two Lakes area. He immediately accepted the call when he saw that the caller was Sylvia herself. He politely asked, "General Frost, what are your orders? We've just killed a dozen or so of Tigris Special Forces who are trying to assassinate Caspian right outside Southlake Corporation. I need you to clean up the scene. No questions allowed, do as you're told," ordered Sylvia. "Yes, madam." Andrew didn't dare to ask about the given directives despite his confusion after hearing Sylvia's last sentence. He just needed to listen and follow through with her orders. He made a call to Joey and assigned her to clean up the scene right away. Joey accepted his call and orders, cleaning up the scene with her men right away. Meanwhile, at Glorious Group, Bob seemed upset as he explained, "Mr. Taylor, an unforeseen circumstance prevented us from successfully capturing Willow." He never expected a hidden surprise to throw a wrench in his plans. "What is it? How did you even manage to fail at capturing a single woman?" Taylor was visibly furious as he was already annoyed thinking about the matter at Dragon's Hill. Bob replied, "Our plan was to capture Willow when she was on the way home after work, but we never expected Caspian to be by her side. And the surprise was that Caspian had some powerful fighters following and protecting them. Our men were ambushed when they tried to go in and capture her. Caspian's appearance was truly unexpected. Furthermore, the appearance of Diatoran's special forces was never even considered." Taylor arrogantly explained, "Consider a lesson learned about Caspian, then. He'll be even more prepared now that our attempt at capturing Willow has failed. We'll need to go with a different tactic. Send your men to investigate Willow's loved ones. We'll capture someone else instead and blackmail Willow into coming to us. The best target would be someone who lives alone to make it easier for us. They would need to employ a roundabout tactic now that they could no longer confront Caspian and Willow head-on. We concluded that none of the Sylvesters are easy targets back when we were investigating Willow's background. The only exception would be a good friend of hers called Zoe who lives alone. We could capture her instead and threaten Willow with her," answered Bob. "Then go ahead and bring Zoe to the tunnels of Dragon's Hill," ordered Taylor. "Yes, sir." Bob turned around and left. He had been worried sick ever since the attempt at capturing Willow failed until Taylor told him what he could do next. Back in the SUV, Willow began questioning Caspian. "Hubby, who were those people, and why were they targeting us?" asked Willow. "They weren't targeting us, just you. They wanted to capture you in order to solve the mystery of the cosmic octagonal nexus puzzle I showed you before," explained Caspian. Willow began to realize it wasn't just a simple matter. Isn't that photo just some puzzle game of sorts? Why would they go so far as to kidnap someone? I've been trying to hide it from you, but I guess I should just tell you everything now. The puzzle is actually about one of Diatoran's treasures. The men who attacked us are Tigris Special Forces who want to capture you in order to solve the puzzle and open the door so that they can steal the treasure." Caspian decided to not hide the truth any longer. Willow was surprised. "What? But you told me it was just a simple puzzle game. Just what else are you hiding from me, Caspian?" She could not have guessed the severity of the situation if he had not told her the truth. Any information about the puzzle is considered top secret within the military, and you're not allowed to tell anyone else about it. "Do you understand why I've been insisting on following you today?" explained Caspian. He was worried that she might misunderstand the situation, as he never wanted Willow to be involved in the matter in the first place. However, the other party plotted a sudden attack to capture her. He had also deliberately kept his true identity hidden, as he explained about the puzzle. Willow was slightly moved by his words. "Oh, so you were just trying to protect me, but it's not like I can solve the puzzle or anything." She had spent quite some time on the photo of the cosmic octagonal nexus, yet she never made any major breakthrough. "Your grandfather was an expert on these puzzles, and you were reading the book that he wrote about them, remember? Maybe he recorded an answer somewhere." Willow nodded her head. She felt that she had a duty as a citizen of Diatoran to help out in solving the puzzle. Everything that was happening in Southlake City was being closely monitored by the men from Easton. The men were monitoring Caspian and reporting his activities to Wiley. They had also started to notice that Caspian was not just any ordinary man. Meanwhile, Joey brought her men to South Lake Corporation. Miranda and Matthew simply stood at the side as they were not allowed to get close to the scene. Miranda had already learned of what happened from her employees. She was utterly shocked by the fact that such a dangerous act was committed right outside of South Lake Corporation. Joey and her men swiftly cleaned up the scene and brought all the corpses back to the Inspector General's office. She couldn't help but wonder why the regional chief of Two Lakes simply ordered her to clean up the scene. She began to ponder about Caspian's true identity. There were also his comrades who would follow him wherever he went. Every time his enemies were killed, someone would always clean up the scene and take care of the situation for him. Sylvia made sure that the scene at South Lake Corporation was properly cleaned up before driving off to meet up with Caspian. She still had to make sure that Caspian and Willow were safe. She believed that their enemies from Tigra would not have easily let go of their target and would definitely strike again. Meanwhile, Zoe, in her rental house, was about to go to bed with a yawn. It was already midnight. Suddenly, a loud crash could be heard at the door. Several men soon came rushing inside the house. Zoe started screaming out of fear from the sudden invasion. She could only wonder if the men had broken into her house for sexual assault or just for her money. She could not possibly do anything against their numbers by herself. Zoe was so frightened by the sudden event that she had forgotten about the option to escape. She tried her best to compose herself and asked, "Who are you people?" The Tigra Special Forces soldiers remained silent throughout. The leader slowly walked up to her and struck her back. Zoe was incapacitated in an instant. She fainted without even a second of struggle. The men brought her into their car and contacted Taylor to report their success and to prepare for the next step. Chapter 192 Alone. Bob received the news of Zoe's capture and immediately headed for Dragon's Hill with his men. He also reported to Taylor right away. All of Tigra's Special Forces, along with Henry, were making their way to Dragon's Hill. It would not be a peaceful night in Dragon's Hill tonight. Zoe was understandably frightened, thinking that she was brought to the middle of nowhere when she arrived at the base of Dragon's Hill. Although she had remained relatively safe in the hands of the Special Forces, her anxiety only grew the farther she was being brought away from South Lake City. "What do you guys want from me, exactly?" asked the frightened Zoe. One of the men replied, "Shut up. You'll know soon enough." The car soon arrived at the top of Dragon's Hill. Zoe was spooked by the complete darkness surrounding her. Many more cars showed up and parked nearby right after the car she was in had stopped. Hundreds of men soon came out of the cars and surrounded the place, which frightened Zoe even more. Taylor walked up to the frightened Zoe with a smile and explained, "Relax, Ms. Yanez. We won't hurt you as long as you listen to us." She nodded her head obediently, as she didn't dare to resist, considering she was all alone. Some of the soldiers were stationed outside while the rest entered the tunnels. Zoe was brought into the tunnels and soon came across 3 corpses that were revealed by a flashlight. She screamed her lungs out at the sight. Although she was no stranger to seeing corpses, the 3 mangled bodies before her were too gruesome. Taylor spoke up with a sly smile. "Ms. Yanez, I'd like to borrow your phone to give your friend, Willow, a call." He then ordered his men to bring him her phone. Zoe began to wonder if they knew about the fact that Willow was the boss of a huge corporation and simply wanted to ask for ransom money. Meanwhile, back at Riverside Villa, Willow was sitting on the sofa and watching the television when she received a call from Zoe's number. "Zoe, what's up? Why are you calling me so late into the night?" asked Willow. A stranger's voice replied, "Mrs. Stewart, we have your friend Zoe in our hands. You'd better listen to us if you don't want her to get hurt." Willow was shocked, but she quickly composed herself after realizing that Zoe was kidnapped. She quickly replied, "I can pay you as much as you'd like. Just don't hurt Zoe." She just wanted to calm down the kidnappers for now. "We aren't interested in your money. What we need is your grandfather's records. Bring them along and come to Dragon's Hill. We have a puzzle for you to solve." She was surprised once more. A puzzle to solve. Willow recalled the conversation she had with Caspian about it. She realized that perhaps the caller was a Tigran soldier. That's right, Mrs. Stewart. We know that your grandfather was knowledgeable about this. We'd love to have your help in solving this mystery. Willow concluded that the Tigran soldiers kidnapped Zoe in order to threaten her to help them with the puzzle. She never expected her enemies to be so despicable as to threaten her with her best friend's safety. The caller demanded, "Make your way to Dragon's Hill, or else you won't see your friend ever again. Don't hurt her, please. I'll come right away," answered Willow. She wasn't confident about solving the puzzle at all, but she still decided to show up at Dragon's Hill in order to ascertain Zoe's well-being. Don't try to ask for any help, especially from your husband, Caspian, or else your friend's life will be forfeited. Willow took a glance at Caspian in the bathroom. She surmised that he should still be showering. "I understand. I'll be there as soon as possible." She hung up the phone after giving her reassurance. She needed to reach Dragon's Hill as soon as possible to deal with the emergency. Willow got into the Rolls Royce and left her house. She stepped as hard as she could on the pedal, making her way to Dragon's Hill. Sylvia, Macy, and the rest of the soldiers were guarding the area from the shadows. They were fused when they saw Willow leaving the house alone in the middle of the night. Did something happen between Willow and Caspian? "Why is she leaving in the middle of the night alone?" asked Macy. Sylvia replied, "Something isn't right. We need to give Caspian a call." Macy immediately called Caspian to tell him about the weird situation at hand. Caspian picked up the call from Macy just as he came out of the bathroom. "Lord Caspian, bad news. Willow drove away by herself a minute ago." "Did anything happen between the two of you?" asked Macy. "Shit. Chase after her immediately." Although Caspian didn't know what had happened just yet, his instincts told him that something bad was going to happen. He hung up the call and rushed out of the house with a Ferrari. He had no other choice if he were to catch up with Willow. Macy asked, "What are your orders, Caspian?" "Get in the driver's seat of the Ferrari and chase after Willow. Have the others move out as well," ordered Caspian. He then tried calling Willow multiple times to no avail. He felt that something must have happened for Willow to suddenly leave the house without an explanation. "Sylvia, I need you to find out what happened." Sylvia then gave a call to various information contacts and quickly received news of what happened. "Caspian, Glorious Group has mobilized every single man they have. They captured Zoe earlier and just threatened Willow with her," reported Sylvia. The situation finally dawned on Caspian, as he realized how despicable the Tigran soldiers were to kidnap Zoe to threaten Willow because they could not directly challenge him. "Macy, full speed ahead," ordered Caspian. Macy pressed down on the gas pedal with all her strength and headed straight to Dragon's Hill. "Caspian, should we give John a call?" "I'm afraid there'll be a war tonight," asked Sylvia. "Don't be rash, Sylvia. Willow must be going alone because the Tigran soldiers ordered her to do so. Zoe's life might be in danger if we accidentally alert them of our presence. We just need to catch up to Willow for now," answered Caspian. Willow had been driving as fast as she could, but her driving skills were incomparable to Macy's. She had also slowed down in order to safely go through the mountainous roads. Soon after, a bright light shone upon the Rolls Royce from behind. She was slightly taken aback and witnessed a red Ferrari approaching her. The Ferrari soon overtook Willow's car, forcing her to a stop. She brought her car to the side and got out of the car. She was surprised to find Caspian and both Sylvia and Macy coming out of the Ferrari. "Why are you following me?" asked Willow angrily. She didn't have the time to be loitering around. Caspian scolded her. "Were you threatened by the Tigran soldiers with Zoe's safety? Is that why you're heading to Dragon's Hill alone? You should have told me right away instead of leaving by yourself." Chapter 193, Ever-Changing Battles. What's the point of telling you about it? What can you possibly do? Besides, they told me to never tell anyone about it, or else they'd kill Zoe. Willow hastily explained herself while trying to hold back her tears. "Calm down, Willow. They won't kill Zoe just like that. What they really want is for you to help them solve the puzzle. Zoe will be safe until you arrive." She was finally convinced. Meanwhile, Sylvia had brought along Diatoran's special forces and caught up to them. Willow didn't expect Caspian to call his comrades for help. She surmised that it was the best call of action, considering that Zoe was kidnapped by Tigran soldiers. She couldn't tell whether or not his comrades would be able to save Zoe just yet. Sylvia spoke up. "Caspian, let me lead our men for a frontal assault and rescue the hostage." "Calm down, Sylvia. We don't have any advantage going into the tunnels. We won't be able to see anything, and would just be sending our men to their deaths if we fight them head-on," replied Caspian. Sylvia continued, "Then how about General Anderson's troops? It can be less risky." Willow was surprised to hear about John Anderson. She could not comprehend how Caspian and Sylvia could simply just ask him for help. John was supposed to be a general, even above Sylvia by rank. It's not a matter of troops, it's a matter of the terrain. We could funnel as many of our soldiers as we want, but it's just sending them into a meat grinder of a tunnel," explained Caspian. He then pondered for a while and came up with another solution. "I have an idea. I'll bring Willow into the tunnel and rescue Zoe myself. The rest of you, stay outside and assist me." Both Sylvia and Macy were shocked to hear his proposal. Sylvia tried to change his mind. "Caspian, this is too risky. I don't agree with your plan." She felt that Caspian should not risk his own life to face the adversities alone when he had subordinates he could count on. Macy also chimed in. "Caspian, I don't agree with your plan. Why don't we tag along with you?" Among his special forces, Sylvia and Macy were both exceptional fighters. Sylvia continued, "Macy and I can bring Willow into the tunnel and rescue the hostage. The Tigran Skuns should lower their defenses when they see that we're all women. If anything were to happen to you, I wouldn't be able to face myself again." The rest of the special forces were also trying to stop Caspian after he laid out his proposal. Willow was utterly confused by the scene. She wondered why they were so concerned about Caspian's safety, and if he had some hidden special identity. Caspian waved his hands, dismissing his comrades' concerns. "Enough nonsense, all of you. I've already made up my mind. Follow my orders and remain here. They won't try anything funny until they can solve the puzzle anyway." Sylvia remained concerned. "Caspian, they have about 400 to 500 men inside the tunnel. We won't be able to help you in time if you were to fight them. 500 of their special forces soldiers is nothing to me. They won't be able to harm me in due time. If you guys were to launch an assault into the tunnels, you'd simply be turned into target practice for them," answered Caspian. Both Sylvia and Macy were unable to convince Caspian to change his mind. "Get in the car, honey." He then opened the door of the Rolls-Royce and got into the driver's seat. Willow nodded her head and got into the passenger seat. Both Sylvia and Macy remained as per Caspian's orders. Sylvia watched as his car gradually disappeared into the darkness before giving a call to John. "What's the matter, General Frost?" asked John. He had already sent out multiple teams to head for Dragon's Hill. Sylvia skipped greeting him and laid out her requests. "A shift of directives. Please have your men make haste. We'll be standing guard outside of the tunnels of Dragon's Hill to protect Lord Caspian." "I understand. I've already mobilized the tanks and helicopters. They'll be making their way to Dragon's Hill as soon as possible." He then hung up the call. Meanwhile, in South Aridlands, Special Forces soldiers were heading out toward Dragon's Hill in tanks, armored vehicles, and even helicopters. Caspian held his foot on the gas pedal, speeding through the darkness. "Hubby, is John really going to send his troops?" asked Willow. "He will. I believe him," answered Caspian. She then laid out her suspicions. "Do you have some special identity of sorts? How else could you simply ask for help from General Anderson of all people?" Caspian calmly explained, "It has nothing to do with my identity. We're simply servicemen working together to protect our country. John can't possibly watch Tigran Special Forces attempt to steal Diatoran's treasure, right from under our noses." "Huh. You mean that it's the Tigran Special Forces that kidnapped Zoe?" Willow was dumbfounded by the reveal. As far as she was concerned, Special Forces were elite combatants of a country's military that symbolized the best of what the country had to offer. She was still unable to figure out why she was being targeted. Why would they need me to solve the puzzle? It's not like I know anything about it. Is it really all just because of my grandpa? Xander had been an expert when it came to studying the cosmic octagonal nexus, while Willow never attempted much to learn about his expertise. Caspian replied, "Perhaps they hope that you'll be able to help. What about your grandfather's book? Maybe there's an answer somewhere inside it." "I brought the book along. They seem to be really interested in it as well. Let me have a look." Willow then brought out a yellowed book. She began to study its contents under the car's interior lighting. Caspian quietly continued their journey toward Dragon's Hill. 3 Special Forces soldiers stationed to guard the tunnel entrance were surprised by a car suddenly appearing before them. Both Caspian and Willow stepped out of the car. The Tigrans were surprised as Taylor had mentioned to only allow Willow to enter the tunnel. The 3 of them collectively pulled out their handguns, wanting to deal with Caspian right in the blink of an eye. Caspian had already rushed in to strike the Tigrans. He managed to knock all 3 of them onto the ground with a few powerful punches. He then swooped in and picked up their handguns. He aimed a gun at the men and declared, "On your knees." The 3 Tigran soldiers slowly crawled up to their knees and remained still. Everything had happened so fast that Willow could not even properly react to the scene. One of the Tigrans angrily shouted, "Willow Stewart, you broke your promise and brought your husband along. We'll have to kill the hostage now. Shut your mouth. Call Taylor right now and tell him that if he wants to solve the puzzle, I'll be coming along with Willow. Otherwise, he'll never get to see the treasure kept beyond the locked door." Caspian seemed confident that they wouldn't simply harm Zoe. One of the men brought out his walkie-talkie. Meanwhile, Taylor was going through his plans inside the tunnel. His walkie-talkie soon rang up. "Mr. Taylor, bad news. Willow has arrived, but she brought along her husband Caspian as well." Chapter 194 Treasure. Taylor was surprised. "What? Why would Caspian be here as well? Is Willow not worried that we'll kill her friend?" The Tigran Special Forces soldier replied, "Caspian has made it clear that he'll be coming along if Willow is to enter the tunnel to solve the puzzle." Taylor sighed and ordered, "Is there anyone else besides the 2 of them? Fuck it, let them in if it's just the 2 of them." He had no other choice considering that Henry was not able to solve the puzzle. He had spent way too much effort on the treasure to afford to fail at this point. He might not be able to accept reality if his efforts were to hit a dead end because of some door locked with a puzzle. Taylor closed his walkie-talkie and ordered the Special Forces soldiers below him, "Caspian will be coming along with Willow. Once she opens the door, we need to finish him off right away." The soldiers roared out in unison. "Yes, sir." The Tigran soldier guarding the tunnel entrance turned to Caspian and said, "The 2 of you may enter." Caspian shot all 3 of them as soon as the man finished his words. He then brought Willow along to prepare for the descent into the tunnel. "Hold tightly onto me, Willow." He realized that the tunnel was pretty deep and would be dangerous for anyone without enough strength. Willow nodded her head and hugged Caspian tightly with her legs wrapped around his waist. Caspian then exerted some effort to reach the end of the tunnel while bringing Willow along. Countless flashlights shone toward the couple as soon as they touched down, blinding them. Caspian calmly exclaimed, "Stop wasting time. We're here to solve the puzzle as promised. Let the hostage go." One of the Tigran soldiers replied, "Mr. Taylor has been waiting for you. Let's go." Caspian held tightly onto Willow's hand as they went farther into the tunnel. Willow was also extremely nervous due to the surroundings, and held his hand tightly for reassurance. The couple soon arrived at the stone door hiding the treasure. Smiling, Taylor greeted the couple. "You're finally here. I've been waiting for you." Zoe was tied up right beside Taylor. She seemed worried as she cried out, "Willow, you shouldn't have come for me. There are too many of them." She felt guilty as she couldn't tell if she was happy or sad with the fact that Willow came to her rescue. "You're my best friend. I can't possibly let you be in danger and not try to help," answered Willow. Zoe was moved by her reassurance. Henry spoke up with contempt. "What can a young lady like her possibly do to solve this puzzle?" Taylor proceeded to ignore Henry and continued to speak to Willow. "Mrs. Stewart, please do proceed with solving the puzzle. I promise to not harm your friend as long as you manage to open the door." "This puzzle isn't easy," answered Willow. Caspian had reminded her to waste as much time as possible. even if she could figure out the puzzle. But for now, she truly had not a single clue about how to solve the puzzle. "How much time do you need, Mrs. Stewart?" asked Taylor. He could understand her need for some time as the puzzle had stumped even Henry. She explained, "I can't give you an exact amount of time. I'll need to solve it one step at a time. I can't just let you spend all the time in the world down here. You know, I can give you 3 hours. You'll need to solve the puzzle before daybreak, or the three of you won't be making it out of here alive," demanded Taylor. He could not afford to delay his mission any further. He needed to open the door and bring all the treasure back to Tigra. Willow had no choice but to nod her head, pretending to heed his warnings. Taylor continued, "Let's have your husband be in charge of moving the pieces of the disc." Caspian recalled that Sylvia had mentioned there might still be traps right behind the stone door. Willow was not informed about any potential traps behind the door. The couple slowly began to work on the puzzle so as to prevent Taylor from losing his temper. Willow frowned as she stared at the disc. She started to tell Caspian what pieces to move. Meanwhile, back on the surface, Sylvia and Macy had been anxiously waiting for John's reinforcements to arrive. The loud sounds of machines roared through the darkness as dozens of helicopters flew toward Dragon's Hill. Airborne forces were subsequently deployed from the helicopters. In a few minutes, hundreds of soldiers collectively descended toward Sylvia and Macy. The leader of the airdrop soldiers stepped up and greeted both Sylvia and Macy, reporting to General Frost. "We're ready for your commands. Be on standby," ordered Sylvia. "Yes, madam." Soon after, multiple new model tanks also arrived and deployed over a total of thousands of Special Forces troops. John had sent over 1,000 men to dwarf Tigra's forces. The tunnels of Dragon's Hill were limited in space, and could not possibly allow for all the troops to proceed underground at once. Meanwhile, below the surface, Willow had a sudden realization and remembered specific details from Xander's writings. The couple continued to solve the puzzle in tandem. Finally, the shape of a dragon could be seen on the cosmic octagonal nexus disk. A loud rumble roared across the tunnel. The huge stone door slowly crept open. Both Willow and Caspian finally let out a sigh. Taylor, Bob, and the rest of the men were cheering as they witnessed the stone door opening. They were all prepared to rush inside to grab the treasure right away. Right before the stone door was about to fully open, a flash of light poured out from within. The couple was taken by surprise. They were completely pulled inside by the mysterious force. The couple screamed out as they never expected something like this to happen. Taylor and Bob were also trying to run in through the door. However, the stone door instantly shut itself right after the couple was sucked in. Taylor and Bob froze up in place as they watched the stone door remain closed before them. They could only wonder why the door shut off so abruptly. All of Tigra's soldiers were also confused as to what had happened. Taylor then spoke up, "We still have our hostage. We can just wait for them to return." Meanwhile, beyond the stone door, Caspian and Willow realized that they had been sucked in because of the weird airflow within the cave. They soon realized that countless treasures littered the cave. Boxes of treasure and mountains of gold and silver covered the cove as far as their eyes could see. Caspian exclaimed, "I guess this is why the Tigrans were willing to spend so much effort to obtain these treasures. With the amount of gold and silver in here, it could even reinvigorate an entire country." Although Willow was similarly surprised, she was still deadly worried for Zoe's safety. Just who put all these treasures in here? What should we do now, hubby? Zoe is still in their hands. Chapter 195, A Secret Entrance. Back on the Dragon's Hill, Avon had rushed over after receiving news about a possible war. He headed over to assist with medical help and save his injured comrades as he anticipated a war to break out. He scolded Sylvia after he was briefed about what had happened. "Sylvia, what happened? Why would you let Lord Caspian go into the tunnels alone? Why didn't you follow him?" "I can't possibly go against Lord Caspian's orders," answered Sylvia. She was even more worried about Caspian's safety than Avon. She was also envious of Willow for the fact that Caspian would willingly disregard his own safety just for her. Avon continued, "Now that all the reinforcements have arrived, what are we still waiting for? We should move out and look for them. We're not going to act on our own without orders from Lord Caspian. Besides, The terrain within is terribly unfavorable for our troops, answered Sylvia. She wanted to head down the tunnels more than anyone else. You've got to be kidding me. We can't possibly sit here and wait around just because Lord Caspian ordered us to. We gotta improvise. What are we going to do if something actually happened to Lord Caspian down in the tunnels? Sylvia felt embarrassed and was hesitating to go into action. The soldiers also chimed in with enthusiasm. Please give us your orders, General Frost. We're ready to help Lord Caspian anytime. Be on standby. She composed herself and steeled her resolve to await outside as per Caspian's orders. She realized that Caspian was right. The terrains below would only serve to send their troops to certain death. The soldiers didn't dare to speak up further, as they realized Sylvia was genuinely angry. Taylor and Bob were still anxiously waiting back in the tunnels. What's going on, Mr. Taylor? Caspian doesn't seem to be coming out anytime soon. How about we enjoy ourselves in the meantime? Bob threw a sly glance at Zoe as he spoke. Tyler gave a sinister smile. You're such a terrible man, but I was just thinking of the same thing. Untie the woman. I want to enjoy myself while we wait. He had long wanted to vent his frustrations. Zoe was shocked. She felt miserable that the bastards wanted to further disrespect her. She waited for the Tegran soldiers to untie her ropes before she swooped in and snatched one of their handguns. She aimed it at herself. Stay back, or I'll shoot myself, roared Zoe. She would rather die than face humiliation by their filthy hands. Both Taylor and Bob were surprised by Zoe's sudden shift of demeanor. They had never expected her to be so crazy when they just wanted to play with her for a while. Taylor tried to stop her. Back off. You guys, relax, Ms. Yanez. Don't try anything funny. He felt that it would be a waste for a beauty like her to just die like this. He had wanted to force her into submission. Zoe had already made up her mind. I'd rather die than to submit to you. Taylor decided to calm her down and wait for another chance to strike. Calm down. Don't do anything you're going to regret. I'm not going to touch you at all. Zoe continued to slowly retreat backward until she hit the stone door and could go no further. Meanwhile, past the stone door, Caspian and Willow were both still checking out the cave. They realized that there was airflow coming into the cave, essentially proving that the cave was not sealed shut and that there was an exit. The couple searched for a while and eventually found a source of light shining downward, which revealed some stairs heading up. Caspian concluded that it must be the exit. Willow, you need to go out and alert Sylvia and the rest of the troops to start the assault. I'll be heading back to save Zoe, said Caspian. Willow was worried for his safety. Please be careful, hubby. She pulled him into an embrace before giving him a kiss. After she let go of him, she reluctantly walked up the steps and parted ways. Caspian returned back to where they came from and noticed that there was a lever behind the stone door. Meanwhile, Zoe kept her back toward the stone door, ready to pull the trigger whenever. I'm going to shoot myself if you come closer. Suddenly, the stone door opened, and she stumbled before a hand pulled her through the opening. She screamed out loud and tried to raise the handgun. Caspian shouted, "It's me!" She finally let out a sigh of relief when she realized she was saved. Caspian held her arm tightly and made a run for it, as he had already gotten familiar with the terrain. Bob and Taylor were both elated to find the stone door open once more. Chase after them. Don't let Caspian get away from us. Anyone who gets his head gets a bounty from me. The rest of you, move the treasures. Taylor's words sent the Tigran special forces into a frenzy as they stormed into the cave. They had long awaited this moment to come. They could finally murder and pillage to their heart's content now that the stone door was open. Meanwhile, Willow finally made it out of the tunnels after running up the stairs. She pushed aside the overgrown weeds and made it out from a hidden entrance that was naturally covered with overgrown plants. She then saw glimmers of light from some distance away. She rushed toward the light without taking a moment to catch a breath. Who's there? Sylvia was alerted to a sudden approaching figure. There's another entrance right there. Follow me. Sylvia was elated to find Willow back in one piece. She didn't even bother to ask about what had happened to them. Split up to 2 groups, one for each of the entrances. Move out. Rescue Lord Caspian. Sylvia laid down her orders and began to lead one half of the army through the tunnel. Macy led the other half, following Willow's instruction to enter through the hidden stairs. The two forces would serve as a pincer attack. Back in the tunnels, multiple gunshots followed closely behind Caspian and Zoe. Tyler was laughing maniacally. "Caspian, it's time to die. There's nowhere you can run." He was extremely excited to have finally found the treasure. And he also wanted to kill Caspian for an even greater achievement. Caspian brought Zoe along and hid behind a naturally formed stone pillar. He could not escape in time with Zoe in tow, let alone go back in to fight. All he could do now was to drag out some time for Sylvia and Macy to arrive with reinforcements. Zoe sheepishly asked, "Caspian, where's Willow? Are we at a dead end?" "She's already gone out to alert the troops through an exit at the end of this cave. It's just that we might expose ourselves if we try to run right now." Zoe started crying as she was frightened by their current situation. The next moment, she threw herself into Caspian's arms while crying. Chapter 196, Put Me Down. "Zoe, what are you doing?" Zoe's actions caught Caspian off guard. He felt guilty even though Willow was not present in the cave with them. He didn't think it was right to be hugging his wife's friend so tightly. But Zoe continued to tightly hold on to him. "I'm scared. Caspian, we're not going to die here, are we?" She was still in shock from almost being humiliated. She was depressed and had lost hope as she felt she was going to be caught by the Tigrans once more. She found some solace in his arms. Caspian patted Zoe on the back, reassuring her, "Everything will be all right. Willow has gone out to call for reinforcements. We just have to hold on a little longer." Zoe felt that death was no longer scary while she was held in his arms. In the meantime, Taylor was still laughing maniacally. "Caspian, show yourself. You can't run from me. You're dead if I ever find you." His men were busy transporting the treasure. The amount of treasure required some time even with 500 of his men at work. Taylor and Bob knew that they would have to deal with Caspian in order to bring the treasure back home. Caspian took the handgun from Zoe, in preparation for the approaching footsteps. "Stay close to me," instructed Caspian. Zoe nodded her head and explained, "I sprained my ankle earlier, so I can't run as fast as I can. I'm just dragging you down. You should go, or else we're both going to die." Caspian reassured her once more. "I'll get you out of here." He then got out from the cover. He pulled the trigger the moment he revealed himself, striking the unsuspecting Taylor. Unfortunately, he didn't manage to kill Taylor just yet. Taylor screamed out from pain, his right arm struck by a bullet. He was surprised by how swiftly Caspian laid out his attack. He was enraged as he ordered his men, "Kill Caspian, and leave the woman alive. I'm going to need her to vent my frustrations." Bob and the rest of the soldiers each brought out their own handguns, aiming them at Caspian. Multiple gunshots echoed throughout the cave. Caspian picked up Zoe and ran deeper into the cave in an attempt to lose the Tigran soldiers. He had to pick her up as she could not run properly due to her injured leg. Zoe screamed out in surprise as she was not expecting it. She felt safe in his arms as he held and carried her away. For a moment, she even became envious of Willow. She felt that Willow was not cherishing Caspian enough considering what a great man he was. Taylor and Bob chased after the two who were trying to make an escape. They were having a hard time landing their shots due to the darkness in the cave obstructing their vision. Meanwhile, Sylvia had brought the troops into the tunnel. Macy had also arrived through the hidden entrance and was going down the stairs. Both sides were trying to save Caspian as soon as possible. They would feel guilty if anything were to happen to Caspian. "Move faster. Lord Caspian needs our help." Sylvia led the charge and headed straight to where their enemies were. The special forces and airborne forces followed closely behind her. Every soldier there was a veteran who had gone through countless battles. Sylvia had full confidence that they would win the battle with the Tigran special forces. She was only concerned about Caspian's safety. The soldiers shared the same sentiment and were storming the tunnels with great urgency. Their headlights practically lit up the entire tunnel. Sylvia brought the troops toward the stone door, only to find it already open. She found only 3 corpses and a huge stone, with no one else in sight. "Onward. We need to save Lord Caspian." Sylvia gave out her orders, and the soldiers began to charge in with their rifles. Caspian was still running, while carrying Zoe. His movements were not the slightest bit affected despite carrying another person, although he had to follow his instincts to navigate the darkness in the cave. It also served as a protective veil from the bullets. Multiple gunshots followed Caspian throughout the cave, but all of them only landed on the surrounding walls. "Put me down and go, Caspian. I'm just dragging you down." Zoe spoke up with immense guilt. She enjoyed being held tightly in his arms, but she felt that she might be dragging him down from escaping with his life. She felt that he would surely escape from danger if he was alone. "Relax. You're not dragging me down at all. If I really left you down here and escaped on my own, Willow would surely hate me for the rest of her life." He readjusted his grasp on her and continued to run as her curvaceous figure bounced up and down in his arms. "Okay, I believe you." Zoe felt extremely safe in his arms, even though she didn't know why. Perhaps she had also fallen for Caspian. She wondered if Willow would forgive her for once, considering that it was an emergency. Meanwhile, Macy led her troops and entered the cave through the stairs of the hidden entrance. "Move faster. Every second we waste means that Lord Caspian may be in danger for a second longer." Macy hurriedly ordered the soldiers. Although she was confident with Caspian's abilities, she believed the pitch black cave would prove difficult even for him to safely escape. And he would still have to rescue Zoe while making his escape. The Tigran enemies wouldn't have been a problem if Caspian was operating alone. Because he was none other than Lord Caspian, the Diaturanian god of war. As Macy led the troops within the cave, a man soon appeared before them, and in his hands was a beautiful woman, Caspian. Macy was elated and relieved to find Caspian unharmed. She didn't even pay much attention to Zoe in his arms. "You came just at the right time, Macy. Beyond this cave is the treasure, as well as the Tigran soldiers chasing after me. Where's Sylvia?" Caspian was also relieved to see Macy. She quickly briefed him about the plans. Sylvia entered the tunnel with the rest of the troops from the other end. "We're planning to go for a pincer attack from both entrances to pin the Tigran special forces down. She should be launching an attack soon." "Very well. Go ahead then. Eliminate all of Tigran's special forces, and be careful not to destroy any of the treasures." He had nothing left to worry about with Sylvia and Macy at the helm. Macy nodded her head. "Yes, sir. You should evacuate to safety right now." She let out a sigh of relief as she watched Caspian and Zoe escape from the cave. She could finally let go of her restraints and get on to dealing with the enemies. Chapter 197, Elimination. Onward. Eliminate all of Tigran's special forces. Protect Diatoran's treasures. Macy raised her arms as she shouted her battle cries. Now that Caspian was safe, she no longer had to hold back from performing her duties. The rest of the soldiers were also relieved as they had finally confirmed Caspian was safe. Their main objective to rescue Lord Caspian was finished. Zoe felt embarrassed as she watched Macy and the troops charge in. She realized that everyone must have seen her being held tightly in Caspian's arms. She was wondering how she would have to explain herself later on. "Caspian, we're safe now. You can put me back down," said Zoe, while trying to hide her embarrassment. Caspian might have been able to tell that her face was bright red if not for the pitch black environment. "Sure," said Caspian, as he slowly put her on the ground. "Thank you, Caspian. I couldn't imagine what would have happened if you hadn't shown up today." Zoe stopped herself from thinking about the worst that could have happened. She was immensely grateful that Caspian's timely arrival had saved her. He calmly explained, "You're welcome. It's only natural for me to help since you're a good friend of Willow's," though he would have still lent a helping hand even if she had just been a stranger, because he was the Diaturanian god of war. Protecting the safety of the country's citizens was also part of his duty. "Let's go. This place is going to turn into a battlefield soon," said Caspian. Zoe nodded her head and slowly followed behind him. Hundreds of stairs were lit up by only the moonlight. She looked up at the stairs and said, "I'm sorry, but I twisted my ankle, so I can't really climb the stairs that well." "That's fine. I'll give you a piggyback ride. I'm sure Willow is worried sick for you up there." He then lowered himself to the ground. This might be too embarrassing. Even though she had just been carried away by him to safety, being given a piggyback ride just felt different. What's the matter? Just get onto my back. Okay then. Zoe felt butterflies in her stomach as she climbed onto his back. What a soft sensation, thought Caspian. He couldn't help but realize that he could really feel Zoe's body in this position. He then started climbing the stairs with her in tow. Bob was still trying to chase after them. Chase after them. Don't let Caspian get away. Right as he finished his words, the men surrounding him screamed aloud and flopped onto the ground after being shot. The only thing Bob could see were flashes of light from among the darkness. He wondered if Caspian was risking his life and trying to fight back. He was dumbfounded when the light eventually illuminated the cave fully, revealing the incoming Diatoran troops. Shit. Take cover. Bob screamed aloud. Behind him, Taylor began to panic as well. He immediately ducked for cover behind a huge rock. Macy angrily roared. Are you the bastards who tried to hurt Lord Caspian? Kill them all. She laid down her orders with no hesitation. And the troops behind her eagerly advanced toward their enemies. Dozens of gunshots echoed within the cave. Taylor was horrified. What's going on? Why are there so many Diatoran troops here? He had wanted to kill Caspian to score an achievement. But the appearance of such a large troop had thrown a wrench in his plans. I don't know. But it seems that there's another entrance behind them. We'll have to kill all of them if we want to bring the treasures out of here, screamed Bob as he tried to return fire. Then what are we waiting for? Charge. My brothers. The treasures and our victory are at stake, shouted Taylor. It would have been a complete waste of effort if they were to be trapped by the Diatoran troops as they tried to transport the treasures away. From the other side, Sylvia had led her troops into the treasure vault through the stone door. The Tigran special forces were still celebrating with the treasures and had never expected to be met with so many outsiders. It was too late by the time they realized what was happening. Sylvia ordered the troops to open fire, and the Tigran soldiers were unable to fight back as they had their hands full of treasures. Within the narrow terrain of the cave, the soldier landing the preemptive strike would win the fight. Within just 2 minutes, the Tigran special forces were wiped clean by Sylvia's troops. Stragglers among the Tigran forces tried to make an escape deeper through the cave. Taylor and Bob realized that the situation seemed awful. Although they couldn't tell how many enemies they were facing, they realized from the gunshots that Macy's troops outnumbered theirs. They tried to retreat as they returned fire. Their retreat eventually met up with their own men, which caused further confusion. Taylor called out to the running soldiers, "Where are you guys running off to? Retreat. Enemies are in front of us." One of the men replied, "Mr. Taylor, we were packing up the treasures when a large group of soldiers came through the stone door and killed almost all of us." "What? We're surrounded by the Diatoran soldiers." "Fuck." Bob was horrified as he realized the gravity of the situation. Taylor, Bob, and the rest of the Tigrans immediately lost all fervor to continue the fight as they realized that they were doomed. Sylvia and Macy eventually eliminated all of the Tigran special forces. Both Taylor and Bob were also killed. Back on the surface, Caspian had carried Zoe all the way back up. Willow finally let out a sigh of relief when she saw both Caspian and Zoe make it out alive and unharmed. Running over, she asked, "Hubby, Zoe, are you two okay?" "I'm fine, Willow. But I twisted my ankle, so I had to ask Caspian to carry me." Zoe was embarrassed as she tried to get down from Caspian's back. She was relieved that Willow didn't seem to be concerned about it. "As long as you're safe, Zoe." "What about Sylvia and Macy?" asked Willow. "They should be done with wiping out the Tigran soldiers by now. They'll resurface soon," answered Caspian. He was very confident in both of their abilities. 500 Tigran soldiers wouldn't be a challenge to either of them. Willow was not convinced. "How is that possible? Don't the Tigran forces have like 500 soldiers?" Caspian confidently exclaimed, "My comrades are battle-hardened veterans. This is considered a small-scale battle. It's only natural that it's wrapped up quickly." True to his words, both Sylvia and Macy found their way back out within 2 minutes. "Caspian, all of our enemies are confirmed to be eliminated," reported Sylvia. "Very well. proceed with transporting the treasures. Now that Bob and Taylor had been dealt with, the next step was to move all the treasures within Dragon's Hill to safety. Caspian decided that his next step was to remove all signs and remnants of Glorious Group from South Lake City. Caspian, there's so much treasure within. Where should we even store everything? Asked Macy. Chapter 198 Identity Revealed. Move the treasures to South Aridlands for now, and have John audit them before sending them off to relevant departments. Macy, I'll leave you to handle this task. Sylvia, I need you to stay here, ordered Caspian. He felt that it was the safer option for the military to keep track of the treasures. They would be a ticking time bomb if they were left around South Lake City. Evildoers might try to snatch up the treasures for money. Yes, sir, I'll be right on it. Macy nodded her head and promptly began executing her given task. 2,000 men had arrived from South Aridlands, and they also proved convenient in transporting the treasures away. Nobody could tell how much all the treasures would be worth due to the immense scale. Caspian, what are your orders? Asked Sylvia. As the leader of Glorious Group, Taylor tried to steal Diatoran's treasures and tried to kill me with the Tigran Special Forces. 2 counts of criminal activity will be plenty to convict him and his group. I need you to seize all of the group's assets, ordered Caspian. Caspian was no longer trying to hide his authority, even though Willow and Zoe were by his side. He realized that it was troublesome to continue the facade, and that his identity being revealed was only a matter of time. Yes, sir, answered Sylvia. There are about 2 hours left before daybreak. I need you to finish the task within an hour. Bring some of the men with you, and head for Glorious Group right away. Don't give them any time to react. Leave the transportation of the treasures to Macy. Sylvia nodded her head. I understand. I'll be on it right away. Willow was flabbergasted as she witnessed the scene unfold before her. She recalled how Caspian was nonchalant about Glorious Group, and had mentioned their impending doom. She was surprised that his words had come true in such a short time. She was also suspicious of, and interested in Caspian's true identity, after seeing how Sylvia was treating him with utmost respect. She wondered if he really was just a retired soldier as he claimed to be. After all, he was able to command the Diatoran army to deal with Glorious Group at his bidding. Zoe, too, was utterly shocked by what she was seeing. She had always felt that Caspian was hiding something, but the current situation seemed to reveal that he was even more powerful than she had thought. At this moment, multiple tanks and transport trucks sent over by John arrived. There were also tens of helicopters suspended in the air above them. Caspian was tired of dealing with the aftermath, and left Sylvia and Macy to deal with the rest. He started the car, ready to bring Willow and Zoe back home. On the way back to South Lake City, Willow couldn't help but ask, Caspian, tell me the truth. Just who are you really? He calmly explained, I'm the Diatoranian god of war. He had always carefully hidden his identity with various excuses. But now, he felt that he should no longer hide it from Willow. It was only natural for his wife to learn about his true identity. He couldn't help but wonder if Lilith would still be alive if he had publicly announced his identity earlier. The Yorks and the Flying Dragons wouldn't have dared to harm any of his loved ones. Caspian was annoyed the more he thought about it, and he eventually realized that he shouldn't hide his identity any longer. Both Willow and Zoe were shocked beyond belief when they heard his explanation. What did you say? Willow was convinced that she had just misheard his words. And so, Caspian repeated once more, I'm the Diatoranian god of war. Willow, however, was not buying it. Okay, dude. You could at least come up with a better excuse this time. You must really think I'm stupid if you're trying to claim to be the god of war himself. She still saw Caspian as the good for nothing of a man she had always known. The Diatoranian god of war was a man of such pedigree that he couldn't possibly grace the public with his presence in South Lake City. Moreover, why would the great god of war marry someone like her? Dord City had plenty of options for beautiful wives, and those women were leagues above herself. Willow was convinced that Caspian was joking the more she thought about it. She's right, Caspian. You shouldn't claim to be the Diatoranian god of war. Not even I would try to write about something so preposterous. Just tell us what your rank is within the military already. Even Zoe was unconvinced that Caspian could be so immensely powerful. Caspian was in disbelief over the two of them. "I'm telling the truth. I'm the Dieteranian god of war." He was disappointed that the two of them thought he was joking when he laid out the bare truth for them. Willow rolled her eyes. "Do you think we'd buy that? Come on, anyone would think you're just bluffing. It's not like we're outsiders or anything. Just tell us the truth already." She was still convinced that Caspian was just bluffing. "I'm already telling you nothing but the truth. What can I do if you don't want to believe my words? How can I make you trust me, then?" He was upset that neither of them believed him. "Why would you marry someone like me if you're really the god of war? There's plenty of better options out there." "No," asked Willow. "You helped me when I was at the lowest point of my life. And besides, you're the prettiest woman in South Lake City. It's only natural that I marry you." "No," answered Caspian. "Why did you willingly suffer all the humiliation and be branded as a mooching son-in-law of the Stuarts when you could have married someone even more prestigious as the god of war?" Willow was still confused. Smiling, Caspian replied, "I was charmed by your beauty. Is that not enough for a reason?" "Hey, you two. I'm right here, you know. Save it for when you're back home," wailed Zoe. She couldn't believe that the couple was flirting right in front of her. Willow pressed on. All right, enough jokes. Tell us the truth. What's your rank in the military?" She wanted to find out about Caspian's identity today, no matter what, as her suspicions had been haunting her for too long. Caspian was at a loss for words. His title as the Dieteranian god of war was genuinely terrifying to the common folks. It was only natural that Willow did not believe him. He decided that he needed to lie once more. "I'm the same rank as Sylvia. We're both general officers in the military. I just happen to be a senior of hers by service time alone. That's the only reason why she treats me with respect." She was surprised. "Really? You're a general officer?" She was finally convinced now that Caspian claimed to be something more believable. Caspian realized that being a general officer could also help explain all his actions prior to this moment. He was annoyed by the fact that he needed to continue lying about his identity. "Do you believe me now?" He was baffled by the fact that they were convinced by his lies once more. Caspian realized that it was only natural for them to react as such. It was indeed far-fetched for a man who was known to be a good-for-nothing to claim to be the Dieteranian god of war out of nowhere. Chapter 199 Lockdown. "See, Willow, I've always told you that he must be someone with authority. Do you believe me now? Turns out your husband's a general officer. No one in South Lake City will dare to try any funny tricks on you now," marveled Zoe. She was also envious of Willow, as she recalled herself blushing throughout the whole ordeal when Caspian rescued her and carried her out of danger. She felt that it was a pity that Caspian was Willow's husband and could not possibly become hers. Willow was elated. "I get it already. I just never expected Caspian to be such a highly ranked officer in the military." She had always thought Caspian was a good-for-nothing man who married into her family because of pure luck. Caspian understood that Willow would not be able to accept the fact that was the Dieteranian god of war, even if he tried to tell her the truth. It was simply too intimidating of a title for the common people. Zoe continued to praise. "Caspian's ranking in the military is only one step below John. You know. I sure hope I can get a man like Caspian as well." "That's easy. I'm sure Caspian has plenty of friends within the military who he could introduce you to," jested Willow. "It's all right. It's not like I'm as pretty as you or anything. I might not be able to handle having such an awesome husband like yours," answered Zoe. She could only look up to a man of such quality like Caspian. Willow held onto Caspian's arm and exclaimed, "Listen, Caspian, you can't just simply let everyone know about your identity. All right. I don't want you to be constantly gawked at by other women. It'll be a problem if all sorts of rivals pop up to challenge our marriage." Caspian was surprised that Willow wanted him to continue keeping a low profile. He had expected her to be proud of his identity. Although Willow was overjoyed with the revelation, she also began to feel that she was inadequate to be paired with him. She felt that he was too powerful of a man as a general officer. He could easily charm any other woman. Titles, and the authority that came along with it, had been the symbol of might since ancient times. Not even the most affluent businessman was a match of a man with authority. She was worried that she might lose Caspian if he ever publicly announced his identity. Smiling, Caspian reassured her. "What are you saying, honey? I won't ever lay eyes on any other woman other than you." He was surprised that she would be jealous and protective over something like this. "I don't care. You have to listen to me, or you'll be sleeping on the sofa tonight." She instantly regretted her words as she wondered if he might run away to look for another woman's company. "Relax, honey. You're my one and only," answered Caspian. Willow felt her heart aflutter as she basked in the sweet aftertaste of his reassurance. She couldn't believe that her own husband was a general officer, and he was so loyal to her too. She wanted to give him a reward as she felt that it was an honor to be loved by a man like him. "Enough already, you two. My eyes are bleeding with how much flirting is going on in front of me." "Humph. I'll have Willow all to myself tonight," complained Zoe. The couple was taken aback as they were expecting to spend some alone time once they reached home. But they didn't decline Zoe's requests as they felt bad. Willow and Zoe went for a shower after they returned home safely. Caspian sat down on the sofa in the living room and made a call to John. Due to the special circumstances tonight, John was still on high alert and had not yet gone to bed. John immediately greeted Caspian as he accepted the call. "Lord Caspian, how are things? The Tigrans have been wiped clean, but we've also suffered tens of casualties," answered Caspian. John let out a sigh of relief. "That's great news. I'll be able to have a good sleep tonight, then." Caspian continued, "I've already assigned troops to send all the treasures in Dragon's Hill back to South Eredlands. I need you to audit and record everything before turning them in." "Yes, sir," answered John. Meanwhile, Sylvia led some soldiers toward Glorious Group. It was 5 in the morning, and the surroundings were dead silent save for a few security guards on duty. She led the charge and subdued the guards in an instant. The group then continued to charge into Glorious Group. The sudden invasion took the guards by surprise. They were given no time to react accordingly. Sylvia continued to lead the charge and broke into the condominium of Glorious Group. They rounded up all of the higher-ups of the group. The higher-ups were abruptly kidnapped in the middle of the night and were dumbfounded by the sudden occurrence. "Who are you? Why did you arrest me?" asked Greg. "You're all arrested under the orders of Lord Caspian for attempting to steal the treasures of Diatorin, as well as attempting to murder Lord Caspian himself," declared Sylvia. Greg tried to claim innocence. "This has nothing to do with me. I don't even know what you're talking about. I'm a Tigran, and I wish to request to be directed to the embassy of Tigra." He felt disrespected to be woken up in the middle of the night. Sylvia, however, was not in the mood for chatter, and simply ordered her soldiers to arrest all of them. Other residents of the condominium were shocked by the commotion. They were all woken up by the commotion and came out of their units to gawk at what was happening. They did not expect to see the CEO of Glorious Group get apprehended. Nobody had expected the seemingly righteous Glorious Group to have their leader detained. Plenty of employees had expected a better life when they applied to work for Glorious Group. But their dreams were crushed within a month due to the group's closure. Macy soon arrived at the scene as well. "Macy, you're right on time. I need you to lock down Glorious Group and prevent anyone from entering or leaving," ordered Sylvia. Of course, Macy immediately stationed 200 soldiers around Glorious Group. The higher-ups of the group were then moved to South Eredlands. They were to face serious punishment for their crimes against the security of Diatorin. Caspian remained at home. He could finally relax once he received an update that everything was going accordingly. However, he no longer had any time to sleep as the sun had already risen. Willow rushed out of the bedroom in a panic. "This is bad. I'm going to be late. Hubby, please drive me to my office." After coming home, she slept right after taking a shower. When she woke up, she realized that she had overslept and was late for work. What's the hurry? It's not a big deal for the boss to be late once in a while. No, asked Caspian. No way. I should be setting a good example for my employees, answered Willow. Today's an exception, considering you only made it home late into the night. Why don't you catch up on some sleep and eat breakfast before going to work?" Willow nodded her head and realized that she might as well stay at home a little longer since she was already late. Chapter 200 Turmoil in South Lake City. Caspian smiled and said, "You should eat more. You're going to be busy once you reach your office." Willow was confused. "What do you mean? South Lake Corporation's business has been relatively calm these days, and I'm not really busy or anything. Now that Glorious Group is done for, the only remaining powerhouse in our city would be South Lake Corporation. I'm sure there will be plenty of clients seeking to work with you." Willow suddenly recalled that Caspian had ordered his men to deal with Glorious Group right away in the middle of the night. He explained, "The CEO and every other higher-up of Glorious Group have been arrested, and all of their assets have been seized. Basically, Glorious Group is no more." Willow was shocked as she slowly took in the fact that a powerful group like Glorious was taken down in such a short amount of time. She realized just how scary Caspian's authority was to be able to demolish Glorious Group within a few hours. His immediate action gave them not a single chance to defend themselves. Willow would no longer have to deal with having a business rival now that Caspian had come to her rescue. "Aren't you worried that Tigra might strike back and come after you for taking down Glorious Group?" asked Willow. He calmly explained, "They'll never admit to having any relationship with Glorious Group." "Why not? Taylor and his men had always displayed their loyalty to Tigra. Why would they just be left to fend for themselves? It would be grounds for war if Tigra admitted that Glorious Group belonged to them as they tried to harm our country. They can't possibly win against us in war, and that's partly why they're so desperate to steal our country's treasures. Now that they've failed, they can only pretend that nothing had happened so as to prevent a war from occurring." Caspian was relatively knowledgeable in politics as the Diaturanian god of war. "I see." Willow nodded her head and felt that Caspian was basking in a light of glory. Meanwhile, various media outlets were fighting for a chance to investigate and report on Glorious Group. The news eventually made it into the headlines, rousing up the entire South Lake City. Companies that were anticipating a collaboration with Glorious Group were left in disarray. They had to simply bear the loss of the money they had invested into Glorious Group. Not a single soul had expected the group to close down within the month. Various companies and prominent families were holding meetings to discuss damage control after Glorious Group's downfall. The Stewart family was also holding one. Meanwhile, in Stewart residence, Marilyn was distraught. How did Glorious Group close their doors all of a sudden? "And we've just signed a long-term contract with them too." Donald replied, "No idea. But according to my intel, all of the higher-ups of Glorious Group were arrested at 5 in the morning. News about the group's closure was plastered all across various media, and even the internet. But nobody could guess what had happened to them. Glorious Group was taken down in one fell swoop. Not even the CEO was spared. They're definitely done for," said Carl. Donald continued, "We've invested so much money and signed a long-term contract with them. Now that their assets are frozen, all of the money we invested is basically no more." Marilyn regretted canceling their collaboration with South Lake Corporation. "We should have continued our collaboration with South Lake Corporation. I still can't believe the Glorious Group is done for. Our family might not be able to handle this." Carl continued, "Mom, although we had only paid the deposit for our investments into Glorious Group, it's still a substantial amount of money. Do you have any idea if we can request our money back? Any amount will do. It's just to recuperate our losses. Hopefully, the group will resume operation with a new CEO. Otherwise, we Stewarts are truly done for," complained Marilyn. Carl angrily scolded everyone present. "It's all your fault. You rejected Willow's offer when she gave our family such a gracious opportunity, and instead went for her competitor. Now what? We're reaping what we sowed." He was still furious over the fact that nobody in the family had listened to his opinion back then. "Calm down, brother. What use is there to cry over spilled milk? Who could have ever predicted such a turn of events? We all just wanted the best for the family," answered Donald. "It's not like we're out of options just yet. We can still ask Willow for help." Marilyn had, in fact, run out of options. Carl explained, "She won't possibly help us after we betrayed her. She had already lost all hope for us back then." Various other prestigious families in South Lake City, other than the Stewarts, were also in disarray. The Archer family as well as the Hudson family hoped that glorious group could still make a return. The consequences would be tremendous if the group simply closed down after receiving so much investment. The business world of South Lake City was in turmoil. Meanwhile, back in Riverside Villa, Caspian and Willow had just finished their breakfast. He then drove her to South Lake Corporation's office building. "Do you feel bad for being my driver, even though you're a general officer?" asked Willow with some embarrassment. Smiling, Caspian replied, "What's wrong about sending my wife to work? Hubby, would you try to get revenge on the Stewarts? Considering how they used to treat you and all? I'm too busy to think about getting my revenge against your family." He had never kept the Stewarts in his mind at all. "What about asking Caspian? I'm sure they'll be coming to ask you for help soon. Will you help them?" "Absolutely not. They betrayed me and South Lake Corporation when I needed their help the most. I've realized their true intentions since then. They don't deserve any sympathy at all." Willow was enraged as she recalled her family's actions. Caspian nodded his head in agreement as he realized Willow had grown wiser. "You've grown a lot wiser since then. Anyway, I have an idea," said Caspian. What are you thinking?"